We'll just go ahead and get started. So this is our first month with the subcommittee meetings where we've basically divided the specific actions that were listed in the 5-year plan. There's education, of course, that's what this particular meeting is about. And then there's contracts. And then there's a few that were kind of set aside, like they're being done in some other way or already complete. So this particular hour, um, I had hoped we'd have more of an actual quorum for the subcommittee members, but since there's not, that's okay. That doesn't mean we can't start some discussion about the education actions. So I had basically taken, well, Pete actually started it off, but taken all of those specific actions and put them into one document. So, if you really want to look at all the background, you have to open up the full 5-year plan, which is a big document. So we just pulled those specific actions, placed them, we actually placed them in chronological order based on what was stated that the month and year each one was to begin. And then next to that, put what chapter of the plan it was coordinating to. So when you end up looking at the education subcommittee one, there's eight, I think it was eight different specific actions, 3 of which are for the collection system, 3 of which are for recycling and reuse, and 2 for litter and dumping. So my goal as at the beginning of this would be to kind of prioritize, figure out, we're still just a department of 2 when it comes to education. So having an understanding of what we should work on first, what kinds of things overlap, discussing that kind of thing, I think will be helpful. So does everyone actually have that list in front of them, or should I just put it on the screen? Maybe I'll just put it up. Everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay. Um, so these are in order again chronologically. I did notice when I started looking through it real closely that a couple of them refer to actions and they're numbered, which don't really relate to the numbers anymore because we moved them out of the plan, but basically they are talking about the other 2 within the same category chapter. So so that's kind of how you can think about that.
Thank you, because I was looking for a number 1.
No, the one of them says like 1 and 2. This one says 3
Uh-huh.
and 4. So this create a marketing program is referring to the elements of this one as well as the one way down here. So chronologically, I don't know if that makes sense, but I don't think since it says January 2023, I don't think we really have to focus too much on the timing, except that it does kind of help, like, I guess maybe as far as a prioritizing discussion. So I think what I'll do is maybe just mention a couple things that we're already working on so you can see how those relate. And then we can kind of open it up for any discussion about how we want to work on this stuff. So one thing we've shared about, and we have been working with the Louisville Apartment Association on creating toolkits and helping with recycling. So although I think, although it's kind of starting out with this idea of, because there's maybe a lack of recycling in multifamily places a lot of times. It's kind of focusing on this number 5 on the list we're looking at, like creating an outreach and technical assistance program that includes best practice guides and toolkits. So because we're kind of focusing on what it lists there, reducing waste, recycling more. Of course, if they're recycling, we want to reduce contamination, right sizing their services, and maybe doing some waste audits. So all of these things would be part of that. And although we have drafted some information that's tangible, we have a couple of places that JD Carey from the Louisville Apartment Association is lining up for us to kind of go ahead and go through the motions with a couple of complexes so that we can, it's sort of, I guess, like piloting our toolkit. So nothing's really out there, nothing's drafted in a way that we're, putting it on our website or anything like that. We're going to do some sort of practices to try to figure out what's going to work, what they actually, when we put educational tips and things, like I don't want anything on there that they're going to just look at and be like, oh, we'll never be able to do that. So I want their feedback.
So are you saying that the toolkits are in construction or you've already put them together?
No, we have a kind of a draft. I think I shared it at one of the meetings a while ago. But it's sort of like a handout. And that's it. That's all we've drafted, but it kind of helps go through the order of what you kind of have to look at. And so when this is ready to go, there would be more to it with elements, even templates, like if they're going to be able to send an email or put something in a newsletter at their apartment complex, having some templates for that. And that would best be on a website. So, nothing's permanent or official. We want to try some of this stuff out first, but
if I could add, Karen, I think the beneficial part here, and one of the things that I think that we've heard is that we need to engage the stakeholders in the process. And part of that engagement with the apartment association is really getting to understand their concerns, their issues, and the way things work and the complexities of what they have to do. And then you can start putting together something that can hopefully address all of those issues based upon our expertise for them to consider. And that is kind of where we're at. We've spent a lot of time with the apartment association, even touring the recycling facility so that they can understand, because they was under the impression a lot of misinformation about recycling. And I thought that was one of the areas that we needed to start. But anyway, I like the process that we're following. We just need to do that with each sector. So I think our next sector could be maybe the construction industry for C&D material, or even restaurants for restaurant recycling. So we have to build a relationship, then we have to start building material based upon what we can learn about each other.
Yeah, thank you. Because multifamily is just, I mean, that one's always tricky about whether it's residential or ICI, but either way, it's a smaller sector even than just the big 4 that are listed in the study, like residential, ICI, which is like the commercial, self-haul, and construction and demolition. So yeah, it's been really a great relationship so far with the apartment association, and meeting a few of their they have a few members that are, I guess they joined their green committee because they were really interested in this, and we've gotten to know some of them, and it's kind of eye-opening. I mean, I I don't know what it's like to be a property manager or an owner of property trying to do all of this and figure out how to manage waste. So we are able to share some great things with them, but they're also able to help us understand how their industry works. So I think it's a good way to do things. And I would expect that any other sectors that we focus directly with, I would assume we're going to do like a similar process of finding those people who are part of that sector and learning from them while they learn from us at the same time.
Agree.
And as far as, let's see, I thought there was something else. I mean, the collection, the outreach programs that mention toolkits and best practices, it falls under collection system, but also recycling and reuse. So I'm not sure everyone else's thoughts on that, but they do, kind of overlap. And Pete, I don't know if you have anything to say about how to tackle those at the same time, or if you think they are separate.
Well, there's common themes with a lot of them. Performing waste audits can be involved in all these things, but
I mean, one, obviously the collection system is more focused on understanding the collection system and what services are there and,
it
ways
is.
to.
And part of this could be, I mean, you got to look at the different constituents that do stuff like this. One, it can be an HOA, it can be a home rule city, it can be just a resident that's getting a subscription, getting some. If it's not best practices, it's how to shop around and get the best price for your home or for your HOA. So we're going to rely on the industry and experience from other like home rule cities on tips on how people can do this better. Now, we might get a little bit into some touchy things here with individuals, but in the end, what we want to do is make it to where anybody that's wanting to do these things has a how-to process that they can follow. Right now, there's not so much that's out there. There's word of mouth.
Green, tell me, I know it betrays my stupidity, but tell me what the simplest end goal is for all of this.
For us to help businesses, residential customers, people to understand waste services and how to obtain them. If we're talking about number two.
No, I was just talking about the whole thing overall.
Yeah, well, we want a community messaging where it fits, but we also want a technical assistance to go out and, we want best practice toolkits for all the different sectors. And we want a technical assistance group that can go out and help people where they need help after looking at the best practices and the toolkits. All with the goal of improving services, increasing recycling, or other diversion.
I guess the reason I asked it is what I shared with you a while back, and that is I've had a number of conversations in the last couple of months where I became keenly aware of two things. Number one, there's still a very large number of people who think that recycling is a sham. And number two, that we tend to see and deal with people who have an issue relating to what we're doing. But the greater number of people, that isn't where they are. They're living their daily lives. And I can't help thinking that when I look at who we need to reach, it's not the people that read our website. And I'm not saying we shouldn't post things. I think that's great. It's not the people who go on eco committees. It's all this huge number of people that are not involved mentally in what we're doing at all.
I
Yeah,
agree. I agree with that. And I think that's where the outreach and technical assistance part comes in. Obviously, we have been reactive. We have people call us and say, hey, we want to recycle more at our business. And
Well,
we'll
you have
go
to
and we'll
start
talk to
somewhere.
them. So we'll go talk to them. But wouldn't it be better if we had something that it was a toolkit to say, here, we want you to take a look at these things, get in preparation. We'll come out and have a talk, but look at this stuff first, and we'll come out. And when we get good at that, then we're in a situation where we could go to certain sectors. Sorry, we can go to associations and say, hey, we're out here to help. We can even do cold calling. Because I think that's where we will get new recyclers.
I
It's the
agree.
people that
Just something as simple as we in Prospect don't do this any longer, but we always did, and I know a lot of others do. HOAs do this. They have a handout group of things for new residents, people who've just moved into their area. And when we start talking about toolkits, I can see us doing something that we could make readily available to very large numbers and very large different types of organizations that are putting information out.
agreed. And look at number 2. While we say standardize solid waste collection messaging, we're not talking about standardizing services. We're talking about messaging.
I hear you.
And that goes along with what, from what I understand you saying, Sandra, is before we do that, we need to try to standardize as much of that messaging as we can.
It can be standard, but it also can be specific. For example, let's say I've just moved here from Ohio. I think it could be, here's what Louisville is doing. Who in Louisville is doing it? You know what I'm saying? In other words, don't just say recycle metal. Something that makes them realize that where they're coming to live is providing services that they may not have had where they were before. So standardization, but standardization is specific to what services we've got in this area.
True. Yes, I agree. And when I say standardization, I also mean brandable standardization, meaning that it can be put your logo on it, but the information is standardized, or a symbol is standardized.
Yeah. And so to your point, Sandra, we kind of have to develop these things before we can be proactive. And, ideally, I look forward to that. I look forward to having, something in hand and something where we can go, straight to a business or straight to wherever, maybe even just a neighborhood association meeting if we're talking about residential, where we have something in hand, ready to say, here's what you need to know and need to do or could do. Here's some options that you may not have even thought about. Because like you said, right now, we're just we're reaching the people who have thought, I wonder if I can get a recycling cart at my restaurant or something, you know, and they're reaching out and trying to find out. But we want to be the one going to them. Um, so it'll take some time, but I think it is set up in the plan in a good way where we create those programs that we're going to base a technical assistance program on. And hopefully by then we'll have more people. Maybe. And of course, you know, like I was saying, the collection system and the recycling and reuse go a little bit hand in hand. I mean, really a lot hand in hand, but as far as what we're going to do. So it could be something that's kind of created at the same time, but depending on the sector that you're talking to, it'll look a little different. Just like us starting with multifamily, that's going to look different than if we're focusing on, you know, restaurants or something. If you want, we can look for a second at the green ones, the litter and dumping, just to make sure we've at least talked about everything. You know, we have begun the relationship with Field Trip, the vendor that's doing our litter campaign right now. And next week, we're going to learn a little bit more about how that's going, since it's been going for a month now. And you know, the goal is to continually have different messages that they help us work on. So so we'll get more learnings when it comes to that, but illegal dumping can be part of that message. And so, I mean, of course, you know, we do some education and outreach already, but it's not in like a campaign form. So that's what the number 7 is, and the number 11 there mentions specifically the group literati, which I've given my opinion on this already to Pete, that I like it, but I think that it will have to be a city initiative. That if we're going to do it, if we're going to encourage people to use it, then we have to be using it as a city, and or our own version of it, of something like it. Has everyone had a chance to just at least look at that or heard of it? I think Pete's mentioned it before, but it's kind of that idea of documenting what litter you see, because all of the learnings from it help guide you in programs or initiatives that can help stop it. So
I agree that, Karen, that it's probably better on the city scale, but we could still do that as the waste district, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, we mentioned doing it like through programming with a school or something like that.
Yeah,
just
so go ahead.
I was basically like, I don't want to tell people to use this app when, if you go on there, no one in Louisville has anything. You know, like I just hate to push someone to do something that
No,
no one has done.
there may be a different way to do it than using literati.
Yeah.
I think that we did find some programs out there that can do it using GIS and like Collector app or Survey 123 app. And more or less, it's a teaching tool as much as anything, that you can take a classroom of kids and go out and you geolocate and take a picture of a certain type of litter, and you use that data, you collect data in that area to see where that litter is coming from and what the purpose and cause of that is. And it's more of an educational thing as much as anything, where these kids can kind of look at what is causing the litter. They're thinking about litter, which is number one, and why it's getting there, and really, hopefully, why they don't want it to be there. So that's why I like Literati. I thought that there was a subscription to it. I haven't got back into it yet, but maybe we can contact somebody from there and see if they can't give us a tour, so to speak, of what they can and cannot do. I know that if you go on there, you can look at it because it's worldwide. You can look at litter on the ground in Belfast, down to exactly where it is on a map and what that piece of litter was. And it's kind of like a open data type portal that you can study these types of things.
Yeah,
And
last
it's
I
great.
looked, it seemed that there were a couple cities that basically partnered with Literati to make it a bigger thing, and I don't know what that took or whatever. So it's worth looking at if you haven't looked it up. And if you all want that as something for me to do, I can reach out and see if someone would be able to give a little talk or presentation at one of our meetings.
Please.
Any other thoughts? I mean, I think we've kind of touched on all of the actions here.
Ask a question.
Yes, please.
You know, for the toolkits, obviously these things exist. You know, I know WM, you know, private sector has all sorts of resources, and other private sector companies do as well. I imagine there's nonprofit and non-governmental organizations have created these toolkits that probably exist in either white label form where you can pay and have them customized to your community, or you can use some other already third-party branded, you know, asset. It just seems like obviously you don't want to start from scratch and recreate the wheel here. So can you just talk a little bit about like how you've looked at some of those existing resources and where that is in terms of being a starting point for some of this work? I'll just drop I mean, I'm familiar with the WM one, but I'll drop that link in the chat so, you know, you can click for people that can click and see all the different multifamily housing businesses. You know, they've got every material already designed for people to use. And I don't understand enough whether or not, you know, you work with a company like that or someone else to produce a white label brand for you all. But can you start just sort of talk about all the different resources that are already out there and not recreating the wheel, if you would, so I can understand that.
Yeah, I will at least share with you as far as multifamily, because like I said, that's what we've been kind of focused on as far as actual work that we've done. And yes, there are lots of things out there, and we've looked at them. I mean, for me to create a document that we made as a draft, I've basically pulled from all kinds of places. So I'm definitely not reinventing the wheel. You know, taking what we like, omitting something that we might not think is necessary, or rewording things that don't fit. So that's definitely going to be done. I think as far as mentioning WM, and I think that's a good topic that I don't really know how to go about that topic, but you know, to make something that's from the district, but is usable or shareable through, I mean, it's not just the toolkits, but I think that goes to any kind of messaging. Like how do we do that? You know, if these companies have a brand, companies have a color. I mean, even the carts, you know, we switched our lids to blue just to be a little bit more standard to a recycling blue color. But when you look around, like, you know, there's not even all the companies use blue for that, you know. So I think that's a good question. I don't really have the answers for that yet, but I know I don't know if anyone, like, I know you help represent WM and stuff, but I'd be curious to learn more about what these other companies think about that.
Okay, I mean, I'll ask Andy, or, you know, ask Andy Reynolds.
Yeah.
I don't know if the link that I dropped in there obviously appears to be a free resource for anybody. I don't know if the company or any other company offers, again, some sort of white labeling service, and I'm certainly not trying to sell anything here, but it just seems like there's already got to be, again, maybe the National League of Cities or someone else also has some great toolkit that could be used. It just want to reduce the workload.
I agree. I think that we definitely don't want to try to reinvent the wheel all the time. So if we can make a call out to any industry, the League of Cities, the National Waste and Recycling Association, for any materials, any associations out there for materials that we can use for this endeavor, I think it only helps us. I think in the end, we have to create something that works for Louisville. And, you know, it might not work perfectly for waste management, and it might work better for something for Ecotech and vice versa. But we have to make something better. We have to make something that works all across with all our vendors. And, you know, so I like the idea in having, maybe that's what our step is. Help us find materials, toolkits that already exist that we can kind of bring in and show everybody. We can look for consistencies across all of these things. And that way we can start building our draft.
Pete, if I may offer this one thought, rather than focusing on civic corporation or whatnot, recycling partnership obviously would have a lot of good information as well as the NWRA. So I
Yeah.
can look into some of that and talk to our people.
Yeah, they're listed in number 18 there. And I think that's the one that really gets down to the standardizing the messaging. So again, it's weird to me how these all kind of overlap some, because I think what I want from this subcommittee and whoever's on here to discuss is just kind of help in prioritizing, you know, what are some things that we can do? Everything's going to be done in lots of little steps. And I'm hoping to, at least through the discussion, get a little bit of direction.
I think that, you know, it's always hard to get started. And when you're staff, we want people's input. We need people's input. We need to know what you guys expect from us as staff, and how you guys would like to kind of us to approach this. We can put together a packet really quick and easy, but we can't do it if you guys aren't involved in it. I don't know that it works. Maybe it does, if that's what you guys want us to do.
Well, I think it depends on who's going to get the packet. I think that using some of the things that are available in throughout makes total sense. But I think you also, I think the steps you're taking with the apartment association makes total sense too, because giving out global packet information to people in very different kinds of apartment or multifamily living situations may or may not get us to our final goal. And right now, I agree. I don't think we know enough to make some of those decisions.
Right. So if we asked for NWRA, the recycling partnership, we bring all these things together as staff. We put together a draft, or better yet, we get contacts with the associations before we start doing this, because that association may even have their own material. And we do that relationship. It's similar to what we've done with the apartment association. But we could take, all right, here's all these different ideas to this association. This is WM, this is this. And then we start building something and we come back to this committee. But we really have to have, I guess we're in an information gathering phase with a lot of these toolkits. We're further along in the recycling associate with the apartment association, but we can go faster if we can get stuff from all of our vendors, associations that could be involved.
So
So
in some ways, the apartment association is one of the most complex ones. So starting with them, you're
Agreed.
laying a good foundation.
well, I don't know if I feel like it's feel that way all the time because you know it's been a long, arduous task to get to know it and for them to get comfortable with us and vice versa. You know, there's a bit of education that has to take place at the beginning of all of this.
For both sides.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I don't want to come off as Debbie Downer here. I know I'm not on this subcommittee, but I just want to interject a little bit that we as board, committee members are the ones tasked to come up with this. It's not a task that the 109 board is on staff to accomplish. And the committee members have to be vested and they have to be the ones that are leading the charge to be vested in the outcome. So I know Kim's on this committee and great resource, but I think industry has the knowledge and wherewithal that assist in developing something that is acceptable to the 109 board. And the people on the committee have to be willing to invest the time to make that happen. And I know you've got, you know, many players in this market area, but there's a wealth of knowledge available where, as Brandon said, we do not have to go out and recreate the wheel on the toolkit. Something simple as that. Yeah. Just my thoughts, but I would rather see the committee investing time rather than having staff do something and prepare for the committee's review.
I'm not quite sure that I caught everything that you said. The volume's just a little bit low.
I'm sorry.
I do agree with what I heard in that the local industry has a lot of knowledge, and I agree. Something that we need to tap into. When I say we gather these toolkits that industry has, it's not as though we're just going to take it and run with it. It's something that we need to understand what these toolkits do and why they do them. And obviously, anything that's done, it goes back to this committee before it goes to the 109 board. It's just the same process that we've always used. So the staff can be something to do the work and lean on, but we have to have the input. And I think that's sometimes difficult to pull out. If I'm speaking straight, it's we need more input. We need people to put in a little bit of work sometimes to help us get to where we need to be.
Well, I agree, Pete. And, you know, I obviously you look at this call and we've got two members of this subcommittee on the call. And that's not going to cut it. And we're going to have to revitalize our desires and our efforts to come up with a product that's acceptable, you know, for staff as well as 109 board. And I'm not saying you guys don't do a good job, you do, but there's got to be plenty of input that we can come up with as a team here in subcommittee that, as Brandon said, we don't have to recreate the wheel. We've got these tools that we use in multiple communities in the Midwest. And, you know, I know Kim's got material, we've got material, Waste has got material, Republic's got material. You go down the line, I'm sure Brian's got material that we can supply and review. It's just getting the right people to put their heads together, to make a joint effort.
Maybe for our next meeting, that's what we should be doing. In other words, instead of putting a tool to get together, we should have all of the people that you just named be part of the next meeting, presenting what they've got. And I'd want to know something besides just what they've got. I'd like to know what their primary problems are in helping us accommodate our final goal. And then changing the subject slightly, if we have people on this subcommittee who chronically don't show up, and I'm not going to define that for anybody, I think we need to consider removing them from the subcommittee and putting other people on. Many committees will give you 3 unexcused absences, and then you're off, whatever that is. And if we're going to have a chronic problem, I think we need to deal with it.
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Well, we've only started. I mean, we'll give them another few months, but it's something I think that needs to be in the back of people's minds.
Let me ask you this, and something I know that we've talked about proxies before, and whether or not that is appropriate. If you have somebody that is the official member for a representative, can there be a second for that industry? Ken Martinez, Laura Veldman, somebody that can step in and still do the vote, be part of the quorum. Is that something that people are opposed to? Or are we going down a path that we don't want to go down?
I think it depends. I've been on a number of things where the proxies and all they do is stack the deck. We haven't had that issue. I think that having somebody participate, if somebody like Kim can't come, I don't have trouble with that at all. But if that person chronically is there, then they need to be named, not whoever they're being a proxy for. In other words, the participation's got to be equal. Proxies very often are not in that category.
I
That's a
agree
good
with
point.
everything you said.
Yep.
So Bruce, is that something that we can kind of discuss offline about how we can start to look at that? Again, we are in the early stages of this, a renewed push after the 5-year plan. Maybe it's something that we kind of start planning for if we continue to have troubles.
Absolutely. I think it's something that we, as I said, we need to reinvigorate, find the right people, make sure we have the right people on the committee. So it's disappointing to all to have these meetings and not have a quorum. It's not fair to those who do put in the time and the effort to participate. If we're going to be on the committee, we need to set aside the time, and because you guys have better things to do as well. So I'll be more than happy to start that conversation.
What do you think about the idea of having the different people that you talked about coming to the next meeting, telling us what they've got available in terms of educational things, and also, because I care, what their biggest problem is in getting people to participate?
Well, I think that's a very fair request, and I think if our next meeting is 1 month from today, that would give them plenty of time to prepare for that meeting.
So would that be a request from us? We can make a request that we send to all of the interested parties to see if we list the things that we're interested in, see if they're willing to come talk to us, give us the information, come talk to us about it, and the things that we want to know, to Sandra's point about.
I would not give
We want to
them
know about it.
a whole list of things, because people don't read things, especially if it was a list that's all of the items that we're going to worry about. I think we need to know what they've got for educational tools and what their biggest problem is with getting education out there to the users of their services. I don't know, Bruce, is that what we were talking about?
I think it was very well stated, Sandra. Because if you look at, the WMs of the world, there's a plethora of information available that they can provide. It can be regionally specific, it can be nationally universal. We need to look at what's available in our region. Kim can provide us good guidance there. There's things that we can take in Cincinnati, we can get good guidance out of our group. But there's other players as well. We've got the NWRA we have support from. We've got all the haulers that we can reach out to and give them the opportunity to come in and tell us how they engage the public in recycling, what educational tools that they utilize. Let them show us their toolkits and possibly take some good ideas and combine it, and as Brandon said, not recreate the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and Bruce, I believe, like you mentioned, Recycling Partnership, they have templates that you can customize for your own markets, but they can help you kind of get started with that and use that template to make changes or put your local information in there.
I believe you're correct.
So you're talking about specific information, for example, days, times, particular services, that kind of thing? That would be
Mhm.
terrific, really good.
I like the idea of finding out how everyone is engaging the public. I can search online and find all kinds of information that exists. And that's, I always do. I mean, if I want to make a toolkit, I'm going to look first to see who has a toolkit out there and how it looks. But I would love to hear, especially, I mean, locally and or throughout, if it's some of our companies represented here, of course, are national companies. I would be curious to hear about engagement.
Another advantage is if we invited all these people to our next meeting and we did a nice job of letting all of our committee members know what we're doing, we might end up with better attendance.
I would agree. I think that's a very good plan, Sandra, is to invite the people, give them the opportunity to make their presentations, let all the committee members know, and expect attendance by them to hear and possibly offer their input with regard to the presentations and ask questions. There could be a lot out there that we could learn very quickly.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, I definitely have a few things to do. So that's good. That's a good way to end a meeting, is for me to know what I'm doing. And we are going to be jumping over to the contract side of things. And does anyone else have anything else to chime in or say?
No, thank you, Karen, for allowing me to offer input when I'm not on the subcommittee. Thank you, Brandon.
Thanks for being here.
But I'm going to have to jump off and make a couple phone calls before the next meeting. So thank you
Yep.
all.
See you in a few.
Bye.